It's Jack from B&T MacFarlane, and today we're going to be going over the difference between the 2620 and the 4020. So these two tractors, they fit inside of Kubota's LX lineup. Inside of this lineup, you're going to have the LX2620 cab or ROPS model, LX3520, and then you're going to have an LX4020 cab or ROPS model in all of these variations. So the first two numbers, that's going to be the horsepower of the tractor. 26 horsepower sits actually just below. It's about 25 horsepower. 4020, 40 horsepower. We get a lot of questions about these two models, surprisingly. What are the differences between the 4020 and the 2620? There's also a lot of misconceptions that we do get with these tractors. A lot of people think that the 4020 is a much bigger tractor, and then when they see it, they kind of realize it's roughly the same size as the 2620, but it definitely does have its use cases as well. We're going to go into what that is today, what the differences between these two tractors are, and when you would typically want to size up to a 4020 versus a 2620. The first major difference between these two tractors is going to be obviously the horsepower. 2620, 25 horsepower, 4020, 40 horsepower. That's going to be really nice with the extra horsepower if you're going to be doing high horsepower activities. So think of stuff like rototilling, heavy snowblowing, commercial snowblowing. If you put a blade on this tractor on the 4020 with a front blade for sidewalks, it's going to be an absolute monster. 2620, we've sold those for years for sidewalks, but now the 4020, it's kind of taken over a little bit in terms of sidewalk usage. Just because the more horsepower, you're able to push a lot more snow, put a front snowblower on, you're able to go through a lot more snow with it as well. These loaders, that's going to be the next biggest thing that people are going to notice. It's a different number loader. So on this loader here, you have a LA545, where on the LX2620, it's an LA535. You might think that since this loader is obviously a higher number, it's going to lift more. Well, you would be right, but not to the extent that a lot of people think that this tractor lifts more. When Kubota did a press release on this, it's a different loader, it's a bigger loader, it's actually a wider loader as well. So the 4020 has a wider frame, needed a wider loader to accommodate the wider frame of the tractor. It does lift more, but it only lifts about 40 pounds more than the LX2620. So if you're debating between the 2620 and 4020 solely because you think you're going to get more loader lift capacity, then that might not be the reason to upgrade to the 4020. You're not going to gain a whole lot more lift compared to the 2620. And if you go in the spec sheet at 1.5 meters off the ground, at the pivot pins, the 4020 actually only lifts 1 pound more. So you're not gaining really too much with the loader here, although it is kind of a nicer looking loader. So if you're getting the 4020 for other reasons and you get the loader, you're going to get a nicer looking loader. It's a little bit wider, looks a little bit beefier. So again, this loader, it is quite nice still, but again, doesn't really lift too much more than the 2620. One thing I found surprising between the 2620 and the 4020 is the ground clearance. The 2620 actually has 2 inches more ground clearance than the 4020. That is just because the 4020 has a little bit more things hanging underneath the tractor that limit the ground clearance on it. Not really a huge difference, 2 inches, you're talking about 14.7 inches versus 12.8 inches on the 4020. So not a make or break deal breaker, but this can be kind of mitigated by adding the larger tires to the 4020. So if you've done any shopping around, you'll know that there's two tire sizes available on the LX series. You can get the large R14s or the small R14s that add about 2 inches of ground clearance to the tractor. So if you add the large R14s to the 4020, not only do they look better, but you're going to bring that ground clearance up to roughly the same of what the LX2620 is. In terms of the actual tractor function itself, they do function quite a bit differently as well. We'll get into some of that when we're inside of the cab, but the biggest thing you're going to notice is just how fast the LX4020 is. The 2620 tops out at about 18.4 kilometers an hour. The 4020, it goes 27.4 kilometers an hour. This thing flies, especially for a small frame size tractor like this. It's pretty short, it's pretty narrow. You want to be careful if you hit its top speed. But again, it is nice if you're on a job site or if you're doing some kind of commercial snow with this, where you have to drive from site to site for sidewalks. You can go 27.4 kilometers an hour. That is actually a huge advantage over the 2620 and something to consider if you're going to be using this for sidewalks on commercial sites. If you have to drive 5-10 kilometers between sites, this tractor is significantly faster. It's about 50% faster than the 2620. Now we're going to look at the cab on the 2620. This is going to be kind of what we're used to seeing. I have done a video on both of these tractors before, but never comparing one to the other. So the 2620, it's a very nice cab. Over the 2610, the old model, it's a very quiet cab as well. So you're going to have the quiet transmission. You're also going to have the suspension seat here, and a lot of kind of basic stuff that you would expect to see on a tractor. The actual outside of the cab is going to be identical between the two. So think LED lights, mirrors, radio, antenna, stuff like that. They're all identical. A lot of the switches and levers, they're going to be in a lot of the same spot. But in terms of the actual features of the cab, that's where the LX4020 is going to have a lot more features. So we're going to run over there, take a look at some of the features inside the cab. I just wanted you to see what the inside of the LX2620 cab looks like, and then we'll do the comparison over there. This is going to be where a lot of the differences are on the LX4020 over the LX2620, is inside of the cab and kind of some features inside the cab that make it feel more premium, more deluxe, and that you're actually getting a higher horsepower tractor with a lot more features. The biggest thing you're going to notice right from the first time you start operating this tractor is going to be the auto throttle advance. What that does, if you're unfamiliar with it, is it's going to make this tractor drive like your vehicle. Think of when you're driving your car. When you press the gas pedal, your engine RPMs go up the more you press that pedal. The same thing will happen here. This is a huge advantage if you're going to be doing a lot of loader work, a lot of dirt work, a lot of driving from point A to point B. Instead of having to constantly adjust your throttle on the right side of the dash, you can just press the gas pedal or the HST pedal, and then you're going to get more revs. You're going to move quicker. If you're going into a pile of dirt and you need some more power, instead of having to take your hand off the loader joystick, readjust, just give it some more HST throttle. You're going to get some more revs automatically without having to take your foot or your hand off the loader joystick and adjust it manually. The LX2620 does not have this. You have to always manually adjust your engine RPMs, whether you're doing PTO implements or moving point A to point B, loader work. You're going to be running it at a lot higher RPMs typically. So again, it's going to be a little bit noisier inside the cab in general because you're not going to want to constantly go up and down. Where this, it ends up being a bit of a quieter day inside of these cabs. Because of that auto throttle, it's not always at max RPMs. It's going to be fluctuating up and down depending on what you're doing, keeping it a little bit more quiet inside of here. Speaking of engine RPMs, there's also an RPM memory setting on this tractor. I know it doesn't sound like too much, but it actually makes quite a big difference. So say you're using this for snow removal and you know exactly how many engine RPMs you need to run your snowblower at, say like 2200 for example, you can set the memory on this tractor. So instead of having to manually adjust your throttle on the right hand side, click the button, boom, engine automatically goes up to 2200 RPMs and you're snow blowing. There's no need to constantly go up, watch your dash, go up, watch your dash until you reach that specific engine RPM. One button automatically does it. There's two memory presets, A and B. You could have two implements preset. You could have your tiller preset, your rotary cutter preset at different RPMs. Speaking of PTO implements too, this also has an economy PTO. Since this has 40 horsepower on a smaller frame size tractor, there's not a lot of implements that fit on this tractor, besides a few, maybe snow clearing, wood chipping, that will actually demand the 40 horsepower. If you're running a 72-inch mower out the back of this as a finishing mower, you really don't need all 40 horsepower. What you can do, put it in the economy PTO. PTO is going to spin 540 RPM out the back at a lower engine RPM. Doesn't sound like much, but again, very nice inside the cab. So now you're going to be working your implement at the proper PTO rating out the back. Lower engine RPM inside the cab. It's going to be quieter. It's going to be nicer to use. It's going to be a little bit more fuel efficient on the tractor. Really nice feature to have on a 4020. 2620 obviously doesn't have that since it's not, it has no need for an economy PTO. 26 horsepower on that size of tractor. A lot of implements are going to need the full 26 horsepower on that tractor as well. And the PTO switch on this tractor is an electric PTO switch. Instead of it being a lever, it's just a button like what you would see on an L60 series. Instead of having to twist or pull the lever down and around the corner in order to turn on the PTO, you just click the button, PTO stops, you flip the switch, then the PTO will turn on. One neat thing on the 4020 that not a lot of people are going to know is that the 4020 has a water separator sensor in it. It's a little bit quirky, but whenever the water separator on the fuel filter gets full, it'll actually alert you on the dash that it's time to take it off, drain it. So if you're getting your tractor ready for winter, that is kind of nice to have. You don't want water in there going into freezing temperatures. It can expand, crack, and ruin your fuel filter. And then you also have water in your fuel system. It'll let you know on the dash, unscrew it, and dump it out. You're also going to notice a few more buttons inside the cab as well. That's going to be for the regeneration system on the 4020. Since it's above 40 horsepower, it's going to have a DPF. You're going to have to go through regenerations every 40 to 50 hours. Since the LX2620 sits below 26 horsepower, it's not going to have a DPF, no need for regeneration. That's one of the biggest reasons a lot of people do tend to stick to the 2620. The 4020, it has a DPF. A lot of people think that means it's unreliable, but Kubota's come a long way on the 4020 since the 3310 or the B3350. We have not seen any issues on the 4020 so far, knock on wood for that, but definitely a lot more reliable engine on the LX4020. The next thing you're going to be asking yourself is, Jack, what's going to be the overall cost difference between these two tractors? So looking at it cab to cab model, as of October 21st, 2025, the price difference is about $13,000 between these two tractors. If you're going to be valuing the higher horsepower model with more pushing power, more torque, some of the nicer features inside the cab, then the 4020 is the right one for you. But if you're just looking to do some loader work, some hobby farming and running around your property, and you don't really have a huge need for horsepower, or you don't think you're going to have a huge need for horsepower, and you don't mind spending a little bit longer tilling or snow blowing or rotary cutting, stuff like that, then saving the money, getting the LX2620 might be the right one for you. Because again, the biggest thing that people think is that this is going to have a higher loader lift capacity than the 2620. It just doesn't. These are going to lift roughly the same. So keep that in mind when you're shopping for these two tractors. And if you want to come in to B&T MacFarlane here in Ottawa and take a look at these two models, we typically have them both in stock that you can sit in, drive, and use and see the difference yourself for these two tractors. Feel free to stop by or give us a call at 613-225-0555. Thank you for watching.